I was diagnosed when I was 16 years old, and I was diagnosed in Disneyland Paris, which was very unfortunate. It was kind of our last day in Disneyland, and it's supposed to be the place where dreams come true. But I'd been really, really unwell for the whole week that we were there, and I'd been unwell for a couple of months running up to it. So I'd just done my GCSEs and kind of struggled my way through that, went off on holiday with my family, and then was diagnosed with a long term condition all of a sudden. I collapsed in the Magic Kingdom, and then I was airlifted off to intensive care in Paris. And it was difficult because I didn't speak French, so I didn't really get that education that you really need in the first couple of days. I was taught how to inject into an orange, like I think lots of people are, and I was given insulin pens and a blood glucose meter to take home with me. But I still didn't really understand what my diagnosis actually meant. So it was very strange to be told that you've got a long-term condition, but not to fully understand the implications. And it took me a really, really long time to kind of accept that I had diabetes. I would say for about 2 months, I wasn't needing lots and lots of insulin. So I did carry on kind of going back to like eating the food that I was before and doing the activities that I was doing before, and I didn't notice any difference. I quickly got into a routine of not taking my insulin because I thought that I didn't need it, and not checking my blood sugars. And I never really got into the routine of having diabetes. That carried on for about 10 years until I was diagnosed with a complication, which really kind of gave me the kick that I needed to take control of things. In the last, I'd say 3 to 4 years, I've started using different bits of technology, and I've been using online communities, and I write a blog about diabetes, and I started nursing 3 years ago, my nursing degree, and I'll qualify this year. I've really kind of gotten into it and accepted that I have a long-term condition. I'm literally covered in technology constantly. When I'm not funding a sensor, because they can be quite expensive and they're not NHS funded, I use blood glucose meter, which most student nurses I think would have seen, and a good old finger pricker and some test strips. I use this, I would say, about 6 to 8 times a day to check my blood sugars, especially when I'm on placement. I like to check them as often as possible. So it's just the usual: pop the stick in the bottom, prick your finger, test your blood sugars. But the fancy thing about my meter, and I don't think there are any other meters that actually do this, it has Bluetooth on it and it works with my insulin pump. So basically, when it shows me the reading on here for my blood sugar, it will then, depending on what I'm eating, it will calculate an amount of insulin for me to have. So that's really handy. So it means I don't have to inject, and if it's in my pocket at work, I don't even have to get it out. I literally just use this. When I can afford to use a sensor, they're £50 for 2 weeks, so they're quite expensive. You insert a sensor into your arm, and it has a tiny kind of wire that goes into your interstitial fluid, and it will measure your glucose levels from the fluid. You just scan it over, and it will instantly ping up with what your glucose reading is. So that's a really helpful bit of kit to have around, especially when I'm on placement and I can't get to prick my fingers. I can literally just scan it over. The reader and the pump, actually, I can upload them to certain software just from my laptop. So I can plug this one in, and this one I can send it via Bluetooth to my laptop. If I'm ill, for example, and if I've had really kind of up and down blood sugars, and I don't really feel like going into the clinic, I can upload it, and I can either email the data to my consultant on a PDF, or I can give him access to my account so he can log in and see what's happening. And then he'll say to me, I've noticed that certain things are happening at certain times of days, and you need to do this, this and this to kind of make adjustments and correct that. I have managed to stay out of hospital kind of for the last 4 years, so I'm not going through those admissions, and I'm not depending on them so much for outpatient appointments. And And in my hospital, we do a lot of email communication, which is so helpful because I don't always want to have to go to hospital just to see my consultant to ask a quick question. And that potentially I could have to wait kind of up to 6 weeks to ask that one question. It's quick and it's flexible, which is what I really need, especially as a young person who uses technology all the time. I find that the faster it is and the easier it is to do different things, the happier I am with my diabetes, because it just doesn't seem like so much of a task to me. I think if I didn't have an insulin pump and I didn't have my sensor, I wouldn't feel confident at all. And I think if I was doing everything kind of the traditional way, where you have to wait 6 to 8 weeks for an appointment and you have to go in and see them, I think that would kind of put me off quite a lot. So I love my technology and I love gadgets, and I love kind of finding new ways to communicate with my healthcare professionals. So for me, it just appeals on all sorts of levels. I honestly think if I didn't have all of this technology, then I wouldn't have improved as quickly or as well as I have.